Hi, I'm Harry. I'm a tutor from Coding Kids, and welcome to this mini-series on GameMaker. GameMaker is, for those of you who don't know, a program that we can use to create really simple yet powerful games. In this video series, we're going to be creating a game that's really reminiscent of the old arcade game Asteroids. If you don't have GameMaker, there's a free version online on their website. You can just go to the link in the description and download it. We're going to be doing an entirely drag and drop program this time, so it's really easy to follow for those of you who haven't done coding before. And in this episode, we're going to start by creating the player.
So this is the view of a brand new project with nothing in it. On the right, we have the resource panel, which shows all of our game assets, which include things like images and sound and all the things that are included in our game. And on the left, we have our empty workspace. Our first step towards creating a game will be creating an actual character that we can move around on the screen. So to do this, the first step is right-clicking up here on sprites and pressing create. This brings up a sprite, which is a sort of image that the player will be based off. We're going to call this SPR_player, and it'll become apparent later why this is a good naming system. And once we've named it, we need to actually give it an image that it can work off. So we press import. And I have some assets here that will be available in the description of the video if you don't want to make your own. So there's just 3 images, and we'll choose player. Now, once you have it in here, there's this crosshair that you can move around, and that basically just tells GameMaker where the center of the object actually is. And you can either do that by dragging it around and just eyeballing it and putting it where you can see that the center is, or you can use this drop down and press middle center. So now we have our sprite. We need to actually make this into a game object, which contains all of the game actual code and logic, because the sprite by itself is just an image. So on the right here, we right click on objects and create, and that'll give us this new set of panels that are used to edit the object. And we'll call this obj_player to keep to the naming theme, and we'll assign the player sprite to the sprite that this object will use. So now that we have our actual player object, we can put it into a room in our game, and rooms are basically just what GameMaker calls a level. So if you come over into the resource panel here and you press the drop down on rooms, you should see that one has already been created for you. And if this isn't true, then you can just right click and hit create on rooms like we do with objects and sprites. But since we have one here, I'm going to double click on it. Yeah, and that brings up the room view, and you can zoom out by holding control and scrolling back on the scroll wheel. And this will be the room that contains all of the stuff in our game. So all the things in our level, and we're only going to have one. So if we want to add the player in, we can just come over to the resource panel, drag it out like this, and place them somewhere in the room. And then we can test our game to see that this is actually in our level by going up to the top left here and pressing this run button. You can also press F5, it says there. And this will just compile the game down the bottom. You'll see a bunch of code, just ignore that. And when it's finished, it'll launch a new window for our game. So when that's done, so I've just basically skipped ahead to when the compiling is all done, and you can see we have our game room here with our object in it, and we can't actually do anything because we haven't given that object any code. But I wanted to just use this time to highlight the coordinate system that the game room uses to locate objects. So it's really similar to graphing. In the top left, it starts at 0, 0 as the coordinate for X and Y. And just like with graphing, X runs from left to right, and it kind of counts up from 0 to whatever the maximum size of the screen is. So you kind of go like 0, 1, 2, obviously on a much finer scale than those kind of jumps. And it's the same thing vertically with Y, but instead of like on graphing it counting from the bottom up, it counts from the top down. So 0, 1, 2, like etc., down to the maximum size of the screen. So that's all we need to see in here for now. So we can just close out of this window